A few weeks ago, I taught my first Hebrew class, biblical Hebrew class, just an introduction. I'm not qualified to go too far into the advanced stages, but hopefully it helped those who wanted to have a foundational understanding of the biblical Hebrew, especially given how so much is put on social media in terms of making up words sometimes. So this is just a little bit on the history, the alphabet, and the lexicons itself. In other weeks, we go further into the grammar of the biblical Hebrew. Now, the history of the biblical Hebrew from the Proto-Canaanite into even Latin. So yes, the classical Greek and the Latin are also derived. Many of their letters are derived from the Hebrew language. Now, the letters themselves do not have meanings. The word aleph has a meaning, which means ox or power or leader. Those have meanings. Those words are used for the pronunciation of the letter. But in and of itself, the letter does not have that meaning. I know that's difficult for us because we do so many beautiful things deriving meaning out of the biblical text with this, but we do need to be careful. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So again, continuing on the history, stage one, Hebrew is a 3-letter root system. There are some letters that have only 2 letters and some that are 4. These are exceptions and tend to be in some of the nouns and in some of the prepositions. But generally speaking, it's a 3-letter root system. There were no vowels in the original writings. Stage 2, they began to use some of the consonants, namely the vav and the yod, to act as vowel sounds, the A, E, I, O, U type sounds that we have in English. So we see that in the suffix of the word in stage 2, 9th to 6th BCE. Stage 3, we begin to see these letters, they're called materaslecciones letters, come in the middle of the word to denote a vowel sound. In this case, this is shamar, is the word that we are looking at here. It's not until stage 4, and again, this is 1,000 years later, that the vowel pointing system came into play because there was fear that they would lose the oral pronunciation, the understanding of the pronunciation, which is probably very true because so much of the language was passed down orally and was tribal knowledge on its pronunciation along with the letters that they saw. So that meant that they need to derive a way to not lose that pronunciation. As Hebrew, the biblical Hebrew was coming out, we had more Aramaic, and then obviously Greek was becoming the common language of the time. Next, we can see this vowel pointing system come into play. This letter is the mem, and we can see the different vowel pointings that will provide the A, E, I, O, U. Some of these sound alike. There are short A's and long A's, although their sounds are very similar. So that's why we see a lot of words that sound similar, but they're actually spelled very differently, not just with the letters, the consonants themselves, but also with the vowel pointing system. We also have the concept of partial vowels, but that'll be covered in a separate video. Utilizing an example here, davar. Davar means word or thing. Now, in modern Hebrew, it's mainly used for thing or an object, but in biblical Hebrew, it was mainly used for the word. So just word, meaning a noun or verb, meaning to turn back or turn away. So context always drives how the word is being used. Many words in Hebrew have several meanings. Context will always drive. We'll continue to talk about that in other videos. But we can see here, just using a very simplistic word like davar, that it has different meanings that are utilized in the Bible. And please note that it is the Bible that determines the definitions that are used, not current Webster or Oxford Dictionary. The Hebrew alphabet, again, derived from the West Semitic word for ox in this case. Just using this one as an example, that letter that is shaped like an ox head. And they are certain that a lot of this is derived from what you can see from the Egyptian hieroglyphics, which is very symbolic. Now, Egyptian hieroglyphics reads in all 4 directions, where Hebrew is reading from right to left. Again, the letters in the Hebrew alphabet, using the principle we talked about earlier, using this example of the b sound, beit. So the word beit, that's one of the letters. It means house, but the pronunciation of the letter is ba, and that's what it's meant to denote, as in Bethel. And we know that beit is house, El is God, it's house of God is the word being utilized here, and we can see that. Now, people love to do the thing where we find meaning in what's going on with the letters because of the meaning of the word that's being used to pronounce the letter. We have to be careful with this. While there are many beautiful things that we certainly discover from that, like people have with like maybe Bereshit and things of that nature, we need to be careful because it's not consistent. One of the examples that I use is that the word for mother is Em. I know that on The Chosen you hear Emma. This is more like mom, and it's Aramaic, where we're talking about here is biblical Hebrew. But it doesn't mean that she's the leader of water, because the aleph would be the leader, and then the symbol for the mem is water. She's not the leader of water. So you can see that that would be a very inconsistent use. So that's why I say that it's not consistent, and discernment is required when we're doing things like that. Again, here's the Hebrew alphabet, so you can take a snapshot of this and its pronunciation. One thing that I will call out is like the aleph has the O. It's the pause in the middle that is really the sound. This is a back of the throat sound. It's a guttural letter, and so it acts more silent than it does really a sound, but it's more a pause that is in there. So again, you can take a snapshot of this. We'll talk about the transliteration on another video, because this is definitely the cause of some misunderstandings about some of the words' meanings, but we won't cover it here. Some acceptable lexicons, I say acceptable because these are the ones that are namely used by scholars in the biblical world. Holiday is the one that I recommend for beginners because it's in alphabetical order, it's smaller, it's not as overwhelming as you start to learn how to use the lexicon and what the meanings are. BDB is more of the more popular one among scholars, as well as some of these others that are popular, but BDB is one that you will hear the most. So next here, just showing an example of how a lexicon will break down the word and its derivatives. In other words, how the word will be used. Its root will be used in many different ways, and derive its meaning, because a lot of the words will take on different meanings based on how it's constructed and, of course, the context that it's put in the verse itself. These are the references that I've used to put this together and to teach the class. Hopefully this is just helpful. This was just week 1 to set a very small foundation in the Hebrew language. So hopefully this helps, and we'll do the next one.